Now, talking neighbours, interesting survey that came out that said a quarter of us don't know them, over half of us don't trust them. I'm asking, is it unrealistic to love thy neighbour? Maybe you find it very hard getting on with them. If you were to have a row, how would you sort it out? Grant Vincent is a mediator from the Dispute Mediation Consultancy based on the Isle of Wight. Hi, Grant.
Good evening.
What's the biggest source of dispute between neighbours?
Well, we have a variety of disputes that arise between neighbours. Primarily, we have the traditional boundary dispute, which is quite frequently sort of cropping up where neighbours start extending their houses and the boundary needs to be defined and everybody's trying to maximise their area. And quite frequently they'll get into arguments over a couple of inches or a few centimetres.
Why is it not laid out? Why don't we just know?
Well, we have an idea, and sort of like historically, we have a general boundaries ruling in this country with land registry. And believe it or not, they actually don't show boundaries. They actually show the limit of the ownership. And they're taking it off the Ordnance Survey maps, and the Ordnance Survey doesn't map boundaries. It maps actual topographical features such as hedges, fences, whatever's along the line where approximately the boundary might be. But nobody actually really defines it down to a few inches.
Ah, so that's why people get so upset by it.
Well, they can get, and they think they're actually on a sure win thing. They sort of look at it, and this is what's on my land register, and it's a straight line, and it's got to be a straight line on the ground. But that's not necessarily the case.
So, how upset do people actually get about a couple of inches of land when
they get incredibly upset? It's unbelievable. Sometimes we call it reality checking. What we do as mediators, we try and find out the root of the problem, and quite often the root of the problem isn't actually the boundary itself at all. It might be the next door neighbour's dog that keeps barking, or it might be the cat that comes over and sort of pays a visit. So there's all sorts of reasons why neighbours get into dispute. And it sort of reaches a crescendo with the boundary problem,
So that sort of encapsulates it all, if you like. It's the catalyst that blows everything else up as well. I wonder how much, Grant, do these kind of disputes actually have a long-term effect on those who are doing the shouting over the fence at each other?
Well, number one, they have a huge effect, absolutely huge effect on people's general lives. They get agitated, the stress levels build, and they go on for years. And this is the problem. It goes on and on and on. It's obviously very expensive going to court and going to litigation. You've got to get the solicitors involved, and you get the courts involved, and they don't like dealing with these type of disputes. So the government is very supportive of people trying to resolve disputes using mediation, and they've set up a national register of mediation providers, of which we are one. Ultimately,
would it not be better just to move house?
It may be if it's that desperate. But sometimes people become very personal about their property. And it becomes indefensible. The sort of quite. If you actually analysed it in the long term, some people who have paid hundreds of thousands of pounds out on disputes, it would have well paid them to have actually moved house and gone to somewhere with far less stress.
And what about, you mentioned stress. What about effect on health? Are there long-term problems that people can actually end up with?
It can be terminal. We have actually been involved in disputes where one of the parties has actually physically died. Either they've gone on for so long, or they've become so stressed that their health has deteriorated, and it's like a dog with a bone. They just do not let it up. And one of our jobs is actually trying to sort of reality check people and saying, is this worth it? What we're talking about here, the value of the land quite often is quite an incidental part of it. It's amazing, sort of, when you're actually talking about small quantities.
Are these rows, are they nearly always between men, or are women as bad?
No, there is. There's a certain type of people that do get involved in these things. So
go on, pray tell.
It's interesting. Some of the research that's been done is that quite frequently the people that retire earlier than they would normally do, and they have maybe more time on their hands, that suddenly realise what's going on down the bottom of my garden. I don't remember that. And so, you know, our advice would be anything like this is actually always take photographs of what you have when you buy it, and don't move into a house and expect something that you haven't actually got. You know, do what you see is what you get when you buy a house. And quite frequently people will look at the land register and think, oh, that's what I've got. But in reality, it's actually what they've got is what they see on the ground when they go and view the property.
Good advice. And don't retire early.
Don't retire early, no.
Grant, lovely to talk to you. Many thanks. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care.
Grant Vincent, mediator from the Dispute Mediation Consultancy, based on the Isle of Wight. I want to know from you, please, is it unrealistic to love thy neighbour? You choose your friends, you're stuck with your family, your neighbours. I mean, come on, is it unrealistic?